Hi fellows, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we will be fixing the braking system of the Lotus Elise. During the accident, the rear flexible brake hose was snapped, and as a result all the braking fluid actually leaked out of the car, so the whole braking system is as good as empty. So we'll replace the flexible brake hose in the back, and then we'll bleed the system, and I'll show you how I bleed my Lotus Elise. So let's get on with it. And as you can see, the flexible brake hose is snapped and we need to replace it. In my case, there is no more braking fluid in the system, so I don't have to worry about it. But if you need to replace your braking hose, then you will leak some braking fluid, so be careful because that's quite aggressive stuff. Now what you're going to need is a key or a wrench 13, and you can undo it here on the caliper, which is quite easy. A wrench 17 to undo basically the nut over there, and also the place where the actual brake pipe joins the flexible hose. So there we go. And then you undo the counter nut, which is on this side here, which is with a key or a wrench 17. There we go. So now we'll fit the new one. It doesn't really matter which way you fit it, but I recommend that you fit it first on the caliper or the brake caliper. Tight enough, but not over tighten it. So you put one nut on, and then you put the second nut on when it's through the holder. Okay. And now finally we'll put up the brake pipe, secure the fitting here. Now brakes are very important on a car, so don't take no chances with it. We'll tighten up the brake pipe. Now once you put the brake fluid back in, we have to make sure that it's not leaking, so we'll do a double check at a time. Now the flexible has to be held in place on a clamp on the wishbone. So make sure that the hose is not rubbing against anything, because that would not be very good. My Lotus Elise has no more brake fluid at all because it all leaked out. Now, bleeding the braking system of a Lotus Elise is not very hard, but you have to have a lot of patience, and you will need a few very simple tools. Well, first of all, you will have to have your brake fluid, and it has to be a .4 non-mineral. That's very important, or at least that is the case for 2003 Lotus Elise. Yours may be different. Anyhow, if you need to bleed your system, make sure that you're using the same braking fluid as already is in the car, because otherwise you'll have an issue. But never use mineral-based braking fluid. You will also need 2 glass jars and 2 plastic hoses. Now you're probably going to wonder why you need the jars. Well, we'll place the jars underneath each of the wheels, and we'll start in the back. We connect the flexible hose to the bleeding nipple of the brake system, and we make sure that the plastic hose is sitting underneath some brake fluid that I will put in the jars, and then we will start pumping the brake pedal, and you can actually see the air bubbles coming through. And when there are no more air bubbles coming through this plastic hose or coming into the jar, then you know the system is air free. Now the reason I'm going to put some braking fluid in the jar first of all is so that when the pedal comes back up, it is not going to suck back in air. It will actually suck in air fluid basically. So let me put some up. You don't need to put too much, but just enough. And make sure you have clean jars, because what you have in here is going to be thrown away. There we go. But before we start bleeding it, I'd like to explain you something real short on the braking system on the Lotus Elise. So let's get up closer. The master braking cylinder of the Lotus Elise is to be found in the front of the car, and you have to undo the quick access panel, which is on top of your clamshell, and then you have access to it. On the top of it you will find a mark, a yellow dot with a black circle around it. Means it's dot for a non-mineral braking fluid which is inside, and then you just need to undo it now, and then we can actually start filling it up. Now the Lotus Elise master brake cylinder actually feeds the braking system with 3 circuits. The first circuit is actually leaving in the back of the brake cylinder right here. This is this tube or metal tube, and this is going actually to the rear of the car. It's a single tube leaving the master brake cylinder, and it has its own designated piston inside, and at the end of the car this single tube splits up to the 2 wheels basically. For the front wheels, there's 2 separate circuits. There's one circuit that is going to the right of the car, like so, and the other circuit is going to the right of the car. So those are 2 independent circuits, but still serviced by the same piston, basically. So let's first fill it up. Now this is going to be a bit tricky during the whole process, because we'll have to keep on filling it up the whole time. So this job is easier if you do it with 2, because alone it's a bit difficult. If you get the feeling that the brake fluid is not going in, or it fills up very fast even though it's empty, then check this out. This is like a little bucket which inside, and in the bottom of it there is a little hole. So this could be clogged up, and as you can see, mine is clogged up, so I will need to clean that up first. So it's cleaned up and it goes back in, and now we can continue filling. So now we're at the back of the car. On the left and on the right you have your brake caliper, and the bleeding nipple is right on the top. So you can undo the little rubbery stuff. There you go. And now you can see the bleeding nipple. To bleed the system you have to undo the nut. What we're going to do now is put the plastic hose on top of that, and make sure it's a bit tight, like this. And then we'll stick the other side into the jar. So we place the jar high enough so you can see it, and we stick the plastic pipe into the jar, and now we can actually pump, and we should see if there's air coming out or not. But of course we'll have to undo first of all the bleeding nipple, which is still locked. You can do this on both sides at the same time in the back of the car, or you can do one side at a time. And now we go and pump. With the jar in place, pump the brake pedal. I'm pumping the car, as you can see, and you can see the air bubbles coming out right now, and there is the fluid. Until there's no more air in the hose or coming out into the jar. Now we'll close the bleeding nipple now. So if you're on your own, it can be a bit tedious to watch the jar and actually pump the brake pedal at the same time, because you can only be at one place at any time. But I have no issue with that, because you can just steal your wife's mirror and then use a mirror and place it against the wall and just look at that from within the car, and then you can check if the air bubbles are coming into the jar or not. This is how I do it, and it works pretty well. You have probably to have 2 mirrors, one to watch the brake fluid in the reservoir and one to watch the glass jar. But again, you know, this is quite easy, and if you have someone to help you, so much the better, then you don't need to do all this. Now be careful if you're going to remove the flexible, because it's going to spill, and the best method is actually to take it out first of the jar and then put your finger at the end of the tube like so, and then disconnect it, and there shouldn't be too much of a spill. It's best to clean it up as fast as you can, because that's aggressive stuff. So far we've been bleeding both rear brake calipers of the car with the bleeding nipple all the way open, and we have been watching if there was air coming out of the hose or not, and until the moment there was no more air coming out of the hose, that's when we stopped and we closed the bleeding nipples. So we know kind of that most of the air is out of the system, but the braking pedal may still feel a bit spongy. So now we start for the final phase. We will be bleeding every caliber around the car one at a time, but we do it under pressure. So someone will be in the car, they will depress and hold down the brake pedal and put some force on it while we release shortly the bleeding nipple. Once that happens, the brake pedal will go down, and before the brake pedal is at its end, the person in the car should say stop, and then you lock up very quickly or you close up very quickly the bleeding nipple, and we go around the car until we have a very hard and rock solid brake pedal.
Go, stop, go, stop.
We are done. We replaced the flexible brake pipe, and then we have been bleeding the Lotus Elise brake system. It went very smoothly, and I've shown you how you can do it, and it works perfectly with jars and plastic tubes. But at the end we have the leftover. Don't reuse this brake fluid. This is to be thrown away, but be aware of the environment. Don't throw it away in the garbage can or in the sewage. Take it to a recycling park and put it back into its original recipient, and then just give it to them. Because this stuff is poisonous for the environment, and we don't want to spoil the environment, do we? There we go. All done. So please, if you have any comments or tips, post me, make a comment, because I'm always willing to learn. And I'm sure that all of you Lotus fans may have far more experience than I do. Now, thank you again for viewing my channel. See you next time.